I'm Tamara, and this is TELUS Talks with Tamara Taggart. We're bringing together experts, thinkers, and leaders, busting myths, sharing stories, and staying connected when Canadians need it the most. We're having unexpected conversations for unprecedented times. Hi, I'm Tamara, and thanks for listening to this episode of TELUS Talks with Tamara Taggart. Today, we're chatting with an icon in Canadian sport. She's considered one of the best players in hockey, Hayley Wickenheiser. She's earned 5 Olympic medals, 4 of them gold, in her career as an Olympic athlete that spanned over 2 decades. Beyond sports, Hayley is completing her final year in medical school at the University of Calgary. She is definitely qualified to talk to us about staying healthy and active during the COVID-19 crisis, both as a decorated athlete and soon to be doctor. Hayley, welcome.
Thanks, Tamara. Thanks for having me.
It's good to see you at home. You're at home in Calgary, are you?
Actually in Toronto right now, but go between Calgary and Toronto, yes.
There you go. Okay, so let's talk about staying fit during this. And I mean, I think that our fitness level, mine and yours, are probably on the opposite ends of the spectrum. But how are you keeping fit these days?
Well, fortunately, I am probably not like most people in that I actually have a home gym built. It was one of the things that I did when I started medicine. I realized I wasn't able to go to the training center and spend as many hours as I wanted to because of just how much time medicine takes up in my work with the Leafs. So I decided to build a home gym here and at my place in Calgary as well. So I have the luxury of having a lot of great equipment that a lot of people don't. But so nothing is different for me, thank goodness, right now. But for a lot of people, it's a big challenge for sure.
Well, I want to know how long you work out for in a day. That's what I want to know. I want to know what Hayley Wickenheiser does to be fit.
You know what? Anywhere between 1 and 3 hours, depending on what I'm doing. So, on any given day, I usually work out 6 days a week. I take 1 day off typically, unless I'm getting slammed with long hours in the hospital. But, and the workouts really are, they're varied. I do anything from, high intensity interval training workouts that are shorter to a lot of functional training to heavy lifting and weights. And then, of course, I love to road ride and get out there on my bike and do a lot of cycling as well. So that eats up a lot of hours too. So, but something every day, try to mix it up and focus on functional movement, which means basically I'm not pushing giant weights around. I'm trying to be, lean and strong and fast and have my body feeling good.
Okay, well, I feel like a bit of a slug right now hearing that. It's hard being inside. Yeah. We've been inside with our family for about 10 days now. Mm-hmm. And, we try to get outside, go for a bike ride, but that's about it. What are some other things families can think of doing?
Well, I was talking to my sister about this yesterday. She's got a 6 and a 4-year-old, or 6 and a 5-year-old, I should say, at home. She's a teacher, so she's got to try to do her job from home. Her husband's a professor. He's got to try to do his job. And then 2 little kids that are just going crazy in the house. So, we can still go outside. And of course, being in Vancouver, you guys are in an amazing position because the weather's so nice, other than other parts of the country. But we can go outside if we are not close to each other. So you can be close to the people that you live with, but anybody you don't live with and are in contact with right now, you got to stay, at least a few meters away, if not more. So I know the other day I went out to the waterfront here in Toronto to try to go for a run, and it was just packed, and I ended up turning around and running a completely different way that wasn't so packed. So we can go outside. So I first get your kids outside the driveway, playing in the backyard. I try to tell my sister, have them run ragged so they're tired, they sleep at night. But, if you are stuck inside, there's things like building forts, playing hide and go seek, creating an obstacle course. My brother-in-law's got a little gym in the basement, and he made the kids want to work out with him. So he's got 2 soup cans full of soup for the 5-year-old to do bicep curls and jump over boxes and stuff. And, you could be totally creative with this. It isn't, it's a poor excuse to say I can't do anything when there's a million things really that you can do. And quite honestly, just moving is good enough. Get your heart rate up, 20 minutes minimum. And anything that gets a little sweat on, gets your heart rate going, is going to be better than nothing.
Yeah. And a lot of people, well, in Toronto and in Vancouver, right across the country, live in apartments. And that adds an extra layer of difficulty. You might not want to go downstairs to the communal gym that people have in their buildings, or
Yes.
it's hard to find some things. But I do remember when we were younger using cans of soup as weights.
Well, I saw this video of this guy in France who ran a marathon on his balcony. It took him like 6 hours and 38 minutes, which I
Wow.
would never do. But he ran back and forth across his balcony for 6 hours, which was insanity. But my son is he's 19, going to school at the University of Victoria, and he lives in an apartment. And the weather's pretty good out there. And I said, go walk to the ocean every day. Go run outside. There's lots of things you can do. The good old fashioned push-ups and sit-ups and finding a box to step up onto. You can jump up onto your bed for box jumps. You can take a towel and put it on a slippery floor and do like a slider workouts with your foot on the towel or your hands on the towel. And you can do sort of in and outs with your hands and feet. And, you could get, if you have a skipping rope, you can skip in place. Like there's a lot of things that you can do. And there's a lot of athletes out there now on social media showing what they're doing in their little tiny spaces as well.
Yeah, good point. So is it important to maintain some sort of a fitness routine when we're in a crisis like this?
Absolutely. I really believe, being in medicine, you go to med school and it's interesting. It's kind of anti health because you're sitting, stationary, watching all of these lectures and things like that. And then they're saying, trying to preach movement in medicine. So as an athlete, I found a little counterintuitive. But what I know for sure is that movement is medicine. And by us, getting through, for me, the way that I cope with the stress and anxiety of what's happening right now is by training and by working out. You get your endorphins up, those natural chemicals that make us feel good and give us that body's natural high. That really helps to alleviate a lot of stress and probably keep us from getting into habits that would be a little bit more destructive than excessive exercising might be. So 100% movement is medicine, and it will help a lot to get through this time.
And I guess, you can add nutrition into that too, right? What we're eating, what we're putting into our bodies and how we're treating our bodies is really important too. Because I find now what we're all doing is going to the cupboard a lot more than we normally would because we're all home at the same time.
Yeah, I think we have the potential to be either the fittest nation or the fattest nation at the end of all of this.
Yes.
Depending on the choices. So I know it myself. Like, it's like, geez, I've got some idle time, and you're stressed, so you go reach for get in the cupboard. What crackers can I eat, or whatever it is? And so you have to watch that. And the truth is that when you're, if we really make a routine every day where, okay, at this time every day or every day I'm going to exercise, I'm going to be mindful of what I'm eating, putting into my body. If you're training and working out excessively because now you have all sorts of time, but then you're going in the cupboard and eating junk, you're just completely undoing what you just did in the gym. So actually, nutrition is probably 90% of the battle, and you can get lean body composition and those types of things just by nutrition alone.
It can get pretty boring, I think, if you're by yourself, not exercise, I think, but when you're by yourself, if you live by yourself, you're trying to be fit. How do you keep that momentum going, or, excitement for yourself going? If you're isolated, you're on your own, no family around.
Well, I think it's difficult. And I think it is about maybe for me, it's about creating a bit of a routine every day. So, I write down the night before what I'm going to do when I wake up in the morning, and I have a little schedule. I'm going to, if I'm out doing medicine, I'm doing that. But if not, I'm doing my Leafs work, or I'm studying, or I'm doing things like this. And, just having a little schedule. I think having mini projects. So a lot of my friends are into doing puzzles, and my mom and dad are quarantined at home because they just got back from Maui, and now they have 14 days in their house. And, my mom she's a quilter, so she's doing her quilting every day, and she goes and stands outside and talks to the neighbors from afar. And she has her little routine of how she's going to get through the day. So we are, some of us are alone and isolated, but we're not completely alone. We can still connect with other people, whether it be FaceTime or going outside to talk to the neighbors or being outside on a walk. And I think that's really, really, really important for mental health and physical health as well.
So is it a good time for somebody who maybe has, not been a huge, exerciser? Is this a good time to start a new routine?
Yeah, of course. There's only one way to get into it. It's just to start and just to move. And if you've never really been an exerciser, the truth is that whatever you do is going to be beneficial. So, jump on YouTube and pull up, exercise for beginners. I have, no doubt that anything you find will probably be good, except I would encourage people, if they've never exercised before, to stay away from high intensity right off the start and from lifting big weights or doing CrossFit or anything like that. Movement and using your body, push-ups, sit-ups, jumping jacks, whatever you can be creative and make up is going to be great for you.
Are there any apps you like? Are there anybody you love following that?
Ooh, that's a good question. I personally don't have any because I don't need them. I know what to do. There's my friend Kelsey Andrews at ATTK Fitness or at Kelsey Andrews in Calgary was my longtime trainer, and she's doing an amazing job online of giving people free workouts and putting on free stuff. So I think that's a great one. And if you look up on Instagram or on YouTube, free workouts for COVID beginners, those types of things, there's lots of stuff out there right now. But off the top of my head, she's someone who I trust would not prescribe something to people that, would be over their heads doing it. And you know what? If you can get outside, the simplest things of walking is incredible. It clears our mind and it helps our heart at the same time. So it's
and a lot of people, well, in Vancouver especially, have dogs, and so it's a really good opportunity to just grab the dog, and you can be by yourself just with your dog and walk for hours really and not see people.
Well, yeah, I mean, the amazing thing about Canada in a crisis like this is we have such a big spread out country. I mean, I can't imagine being in Italy or Spain where there's no room. There's no room to move. You're on top of everyone all the time, and we're fortunate here, and we need to use the space to our advantage right now.
Mm-hmm. So as a professional athlete, training, there's two things to talk about here, because I want to talk about professional sports, and then I want to talk about, let's talk about the Olympics for a second. And we know that, the Canadian athletes are not going to the Olympics. What is that like mentally for an athlete who has trained and trained and trained, and then to hear, I think it's the right choice, obviously, but to be safe. But what is that like? Like, how do you mentally get through that?
I think initially it's devastation, and then you're grieving. It's almost like I imagine it would feel like to me, like to a lot of athletes, like a bit of a death of a loved one in a way, because these athletes, you can imagine, are 3.5 years from a 4-year cycle of going to live their Olympic dream. Everything they have done and thought about for 3.5 years on their daily basis has been what's supposed to have happened in 4 months from now. And all of a sudden that's taken away from you literally overnight. And I really feel for the athletes out there. However, I know that most of Canadian athletes, 99% of them understand and agree with the decision, and that they feel that we're all a team. We're all Team Canada. We're all in this together. And for athletes to be out there training and trying to find places to, if you're a swimmer, you don't have a pool to go to in this country. They are all closed unless you have one at your home. So to try to continue to train is just about impossible for most athletes. And so the announcement today that the Olympic Games will be delayed a year with a timeline to be determined is really the most reasonable and rational one that we could have. And for athletes, I hope this gives them a lot of relief. I hope it allows them to step back and to take care of their families, to be able to reset a training program, and to kind of, in a way, like start from scratch again. Because if you imagine think about a 200-meter runner, they know that on July 27th at 10:20 in the morning, that is when they are going to run their race. So for 4 years, you've worked backwards from July 27th at 10:20 a.m. to program your training to peak for that exact moment. And everything is now out the window and has to kind of be rescheduled to be able to tweak and train again. On the other side of it too, there's a couple other things that athletes are facing. A lot of our Canadian athletes are not wealthy. They are not making millions of dollars at all, making maybe a minimum, a middle class salary to survive. And so there's concerns about them paying their bills themselves if they aren't competing in competitions and don't have sponsors to go through to the Olympics and have to wait another year. That's a big thing. There's also a lot of athletes in Canada that have delayed acceptance to medical school, for example. They've taken a sabbatical from work for a year and they're not sure they can get another year off. Like, these are real issues that athletes are facing, just like everyone else in Canada is going through. But it's layered on top when your livelihood has been literally just taken away from you in a heartbeat. So I feel for all of them.
And I mean, everything is so uncertain right now. We don't know how long we will be asked to stay home for. We can't see the end yet. So I think that must be really difficult for somebody who, like you said, you can't just go to a pool. Most people don't have a pool accessible to them, or a field hockey field, or whatever it might be. So it's. Yeah. When you don't even know what the end is, that must be really difficult to sort of, comprehend and make sense as you're trying to plan your future.
Oh, definitely. I think that one of the things that, I've been telling a lot of athletes and we've been talking about is athletes are really, really resilient. They're like the most resilient population of people that I know. They get knocked down and they get back up all the time. And now is a time for athletes and really for everyone in this country to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. I was speaking to one of my very good friends yesterday, an emergency room doctor, and she was on her way into a shift. And I said, what's it like over there? And she said, there's a lot of free floating anxiety that is around. It's just there. Nobody can put their finger on it, but it's just there. And I think that in general is how a lot of Canadians are feeling. And I know that's how a lot of athletes are feeling with this uncertainty. But I think the way to get through that is to embrace what is, which is, we don't know. This sucks. This is uncomfortable. And we are going to get through it only by getting through each day at a time and being creative, thinking outside the box and doing things maybe that we've never had to do before. And I think that's the way a lot of athletes will approach this, and they will manage it moving forward.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned resiliency because, anyone who's gone through any kind of hardship understands resiliency. But I think that as a country, we've never had to be resilient together like this. Not in my generation, where we've really had to band together and lean on each other and support each other and understand the unspoken anxiety, right?
Yeah, it definitely. I think that this is in my generation as well, like yours, this is something that none of us have ever faced, perhaps since, World War II, when people went to war to die for our freedom today. Well, to stay at home and, just go to the grocery store and do essential things when you need to, you lose, let's hope a few months' salary and hope that businesses can get back on their feet is a small price to pay, considering what the fallout could be if we don't all do the right things. So I think the message that the Prime Minister sent yesterday with urgency and is trying to get everyone in Canada to relay to everyone, this is really not a joke. This is really serious. I've seen it with my own eyes in the emergency rooms in the last few months. I've seen what a COVID patient looks like from afar, and and it's not discriminating young or old. Yes, it is taking out more older folks, but young folks are getting this as well, and young folks are dying from this. So no matter who you are, you're really not immune, and you don't know necessarily if you are a carrier of this. You may be asymptomatic, but you may be passing it on to others. So we have to be, it's like a hockey team. everybody's got to play your role and do your job. And you never know until the gold medal game is over what little moment happened in that game that made the difference. And I feel like that's the same scenario here.
And speaking of hockey, there's no sports happening right now. It's very odd for my house to not have, hockey highlights on at all times. So how is this affecting the whole world of sports?
Well, the ripple effects, I think there's only 3 major events that are still on the agenda that haven't been canceled in the world right now. I think Wimbledon is one of them. So expect that to be crossed off very soon. I think that happens in July. All of the sports are affected. Hockey, which is the world that I live in primarily. To think that we're going to be playing hockey in 3 or 4 months, I don't think that's going to happen. We just saw the Memorial Cup in the Canadian Hockey League canceled last night. All other world championships have been pulled off the table, the Masters, etc. The UEFA Cup, they've all canceled. So, sporting authorities are starting to realize this is bigger, I think, than they originally thought. This is going to be a while.
And so medical school, you are in your clerkship, your last year of medical school. It's quite a time for you to be to be doing your last year. I mean, you must. This must just be unbelievable.
Yeah, it's personally, there's just from a personal sort of a little selfish standpoint, I'm just wondering if I'm going to if we're going to get through this, and how we're going to get through this, if we're going to have to go to virtual online training and not be able to physically be in and seeing patients, because the folks that are teaching us on the daily basis, the attending physicians, are needed right now to save lives, and all hands on deck from every specialty that exists in medicine. So that's one small thing, but not a big deal in the grand scheme of things. The other thing is, from the lens that I've been seeing this through, my rotations have been in the emergency rooms across Toronto for the last 2.5 months. And that has meant that I have seen, the traumas and the regular stuff that you would see in the emerge, but I've also seen COVID patients come into the emergency room, and I've seen them, doctors' anxiety and not knowing quite how to handle it initially on, and not wanting to go into a room with a COVID patient, having to talk on a cell phone and things like that. So it's been an interesting time. I feel for my friends who are on the front line of this and who are in the ICUs and the emergency rooms, and telling me about a shortage of PPE and hoping that they have enough ventilators. Doctor friends of mine that are driving all across Ontario to pick up ventilators. Friends of mine that have manufacturing companies that are now making ventilator parts when they were making car parts a couple of weeks ago. So these are real things. This is happening. New York City, as of today, is just slammed, and the stories coming out of the emergency rooms there are horrifying. So I really hope that we don't get into a position in Canada where doctors on the front lines have to decide who gets a ventilator and who doesn't, because that would be something that would haunt me for the rest of my life.
Yeah, no, and that's why we're all being asked to stay home. That's what it's all about. Keeping everyone home and keeping everyone out of the hospital so doctors can take care of the people that are there. This must be your perspective must be so different as a doctor seeing this than as an athlete. You wear 2 very different hats, really, as you're looking at this crisis.
Mm-hmm. But not really, because I think athletes are very, you're always thinking about health. You're always thinking about being at your best and being safe. And so when coming from a team sport like hockey, you learn to look out for your teammates, and you learn that you got to sacrifice, and you have to do things sometimes that you don't want to do. And that's really what medicine is about, at least in the emergency room where I've spent most of my time, and is watching people come together. Some people handle pressure better than others. Some people melt down and they're scared. And it's about being able to pull each other up and to acknowledge that this is going to be hard, and this is scary. There is a lot of anxiety, and we don't know what could happen. But all the skills that I've learned in hockey, apply right now in this world of medicine and what we're facing here. And it's about being a team and sticking together and doing what we have to do.
You are, you're such an icon. Like, you really, truly are. Canadians, I think every Canadian knows you and trusts you, because we've watched you for so many years and cheered you on. What is your message? What is your message to everybody right now as you're seeing it through your eyes and such a well-loved Canadian? What would you say to people?
Well, I think the first thing I would say is, first of all, I want to just send a message to thank all the frontline workers. And that's not just doctors and nurses and people in the hospital, this paramedics and police officers, first line responders. I saw a young girl in the grocery store the other day, about 19 years old, who broke down into tears because she was afraid and asked me if she was going to be safe. Our kids that are out there working gas stations, all essential workers. I just want to really say thank you. And then I want to say to all Canadians that, if you don't think you're significant in this fight right now, you're wrong. You matter, because if you were infected and didn't know it, have the ability to spread to 3 people. They could spread to 3 more, and you multiply that and it goes quickly. By you taking care of yourself and taking care of your family, we mitigate that pretty fast. And the faster that we can do this in social distance, the faster that we're going to get out of this, and we're going to be able to move on, and people are going to go back to work, and the economy is going to, bump back. The economy will come back. So we're all in this together. No one, if you think you're above this because you're, a young kid and this isn't going to happen to me, you're wrong. And if you think, I had to tell my dad the other day, like, don't go inside the gas station. Get your gas and wipe your hands and come home. And so, we got to remind each other all the time, and we've got to be vigilant, and we will get through this together. We are Canadians and we are tough.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Hayley. You are a voice of reason, and I think we need to have that voice right now. So thank you so much for spending your time with us. I want to remind you can visit Hayley at her website at HayleyWickenheiser.com, or check out, do you have your workout routines on Instagram?
No, I never post my workout routines. I think it's weird. I just do it.
Really?
I just do it quietly in my gym. But I am going to do a live drills and skills with some tips Wednesday at 3 Eastern time. So
on Instagram?
On Instagram. Insta Live.
Okay, so you're at H Chickwick?
H Chickwick, yeah. Someone stole my name.
How dare they?
Yeah.
H Chickwick. Okay, I'll be tuning into your Instagram Live and seeing if I can keep up. Awesome. Thank you so much. Awesome. Yeah.
Okay,
great. Thanks, Hayley. Okay, and make sure to join us every Tuesday and Thursday here on TELUS Talks with Tamara Taggart as we bring you the interviews and stories that matter most to Canadians.